Good evening, gentlemen. Lawrence of Asia coming at you once again here from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Hope everyone's doing well. God bless. Gentlemen, you do not need therapy. You need adventure. I tell all my good friends whenever they're going through a really, really difficult time, especially with a woman, don't go to therapy. Go somewhere. Go travel. Get out of your current circumstance and find yourself in a completely new place, and you'll find that your mind lets those problems go and is reoriented and focused on your here now experience. You don't need therapy. I mean, it's become so incredibly common these days from what I hear, and different people suggesting, that you may want to do therapy and so forth. And I'm not buying it. I don't see the purpose of mulling over one's problems over and over and over. It's like a negative affirmation, right? Instead, create a compelling future, a compelling goal, a compelling vision, and move towards that. Work towards creating yourself now. There may be some time to heal and release, maybe, maybe, but I don't think so. I'm not a believer of it. I don't think that it is the way that a man ought to create his life, ought to move forward in the world by mulling over the same problems again and again. Gentlemen, you don't need it. You don't need therapy. You need adventure. Think about it. You're in the matrix. You're stuck. Everybody's stuck. From the time you're very young, you're in an institution, school, and you are being programmed and indoctrinated. By the time you get out of school, you go to another school, another institution perhaps, university. If you're so fortunate, perhaps, and then you're in that institution. You get out of there, and then you're in a job. You're told that you need to secure a home, in which case you are then stuck and binded to that obligation. So you have the obligation of needing to pay for rent or a mortgage. You have the obligation of paying for your car or a car payment. You have the obligation of insurance. And you have the obligation of your cell phone bills, even. And who knows what else, what other obligations you may have gotten yourself caught up in, such as a beautiful young thing that you can't let go of because you're addicted to the punani. Um, Been there, done that, gentlemen. You know, young men these days don't really get true adventure. And I'll just say for myself that that is what life is all about as a man, especially as a young man, getting out there in the world, in the unknown, the unpredictable, the uncomfortable, the rough terrain, the city, whatever it is, and discovering yourself, finding yourself. Travel long enough and you find yourself. Go on an adventure, gentlemen. Get out of your comfort zone and go. It's been the best education that I ever got. By far, far and away, the best education I ever got was traveling. I've read hundreds of books on business, philosophy, religious texts, and you can sit in one place and you can find yourself as well. I mean, there's value to being able to sit still and meditate, right? There's value in that as well. However, I would argue that we are far too sedentary, far too stationary, far too comfortable living lives that are far too predictable. And the predictability of our lives, the sameness of Groundhog's Day, life being too much the same, it really, really dulls the spirit. My spirit here, even where I'm living now, I'm quite happy with the setup for the family, but myself, my internal compass is saying, this is too similar. This is Groundhog's Day. This is too similar to the day before, right? So traveling as a man, you're never going to live the same day twice. It's always going to be something unexpected, something new. You might meet your best friend, you might meet your wife, you might come across a business idea, you might find a place that you want to live later on in life, such as me here in Kuala Lumpur. You might find yourself in a place, in a scenario that you never imagined existed, that was beyond any dream that you ever had, yet you find yourself there. I've found myself there many times. I wish the same for you. It really breaks my heart to see the younger generation, especially, just stuck in their devices and not really out in the world exploring and having adventurous experiences, facing no risk, having no depth of character, having no courage, having no resilience, having never actually faced any difficulties. Gentlemen, you need to allow yourself these difficulties, these challenging situations. 15, 16 years ago, I let go of all material possession. I let go of, I was in a marriage as well, let go of a girl that I absolutely love, beautiful Colombian girl. And I began traveling. I let go of all material possession because my spirit was calling me to seek more. I began hitchhiking from San Francisco, walked out of the apartment, never looked back. Best thing I ever did. And I didn't know it was the best thing to do. I thought I might be making a grave mistake. I thought it might be an absolute disaster. And that first hitchhiking experience, I was clean shaved, similar to the way I am now. And I had a backpack there on. I was standing right next to the highway, and there was actually a red light before there was more or less a U-turn to go onto the highway. So every car had to stop there. And you would imagine that if you looked at people from a 3-4 meter distance and asked for a ride onto the highway, they were about to get on, that within 100 or so drivers you would catch a ride, right? Well, that first hitchhiking experience, it took me about 3 to 3.5 hours to finally get a ride. And it was very nerve-wracking. I thought it was going to be far easier to do this hitchhiking thing. I thought it was going to be far, far easier. And I thought to myself, hey, maybe this was a bad idea. Maybe I should just go back home and make love to Maria. That'd be nice. I mean, I'm sure she'll be happy that I came back. But I stuck with it. I persevered. I caught a ride. And then the gentleman who did pick me up had a very, very similar story. And there were some synchronicities built into our sharing of stories. And I realized that he was the one who was supposed to pick me up. That was the beginning of my journey 16 years ago. And dare I say, I've got wife and children now. It's an absolutely rich experience. But I would say the richest time of my life was those first 6 months that I was traveling. The number of synchronicities, the unpredictability of it all was the richest time of my life. It was the best. And what's funny is I had everything. Everything was given to me that first year or two when I had nothing. I just carried with me myself, my pure intention. I carried love forth, and everything was handed to me. It was a spiritual journey. But that was so incredibly rewarding. Now, was it tough? Was it nerve-wracking? Did I almost die? Yes. You know, I remember riding with a gentleman named Arnie. Arnie was a 55-year-old, clean-cut white male with veneers, perfect teeth, most perfect teeth you ever seen. I was in Sedona, Arizona, had these Japanese girlfriends that I had spent some time with, and we had just hitchhiked to the Grand Canyon the days prior. We were having a good old time, me and the girls. So they had already booked a ride down to Phoenix, where they're going to be flying out of Phoenix back to Japan, and I really wanted to spend some more time with these girls before I headed down into Mexico. So I hitchhiked a ride from Sedona, Arizona. I was heading down to Phoenix, and Arnie, gentleman, picks me up in a Volvo, right? Clean cut, veneer smile. And from the moment that I got in the car, he was quite condescending. And I didn't quite feel right about that, but I was still grateful that I was getting closer to the highway and I was getting closer to where I was trying to go. And then he tells me, you know, I'll never forget my wife's dying words. And my ears kind of perked up. He said, Arnie, please, Arnie, please, put the gun down, Arnie, please. And he kept driving. And I was like totally perked up. I was like, what's going to happen now? He just looks over and he goes, did you catch that one? And I said, yeah, I caught it. He goes, well, what do you think? I said, well, that's a little scary, man. And the moment that I said this, he slapped the console as hard as he could, and there was so much dust on the console, and it just went everywhere in the car. And he said, roll with the punch, Sean. My name's Sean. He said, roll with the punch, Sean. Slapped the console as hard as he possibly could. And I was like, what the fuck? So then kept driving. I was trying to stay calm. I couldn't just jump out of the car. And I was like, dude, I hope he doesn't go back there again. I hope, after a couple minutes, it seemed like it was easing out. Things were finding equilibrium. And he said, da-da-da-da-da-da, just like how my dad used to kill all those people. And then this time I just went, ha, ha, ha. We kept driving. And I thought to myself, I'm like, really? Well, I thought to myself, I am in the presence of an absolute psycho. This gentleman just confessed that he killed his wife to me. And he might be thinking of killing me, right? So we get closer and closer to the highway, and he says to me, well, we're getting a little closer to the highway up here. And I could see the signs as well. And he said, I could drop you off up here. Now, I believe if I would have just said, yeah, you can drop me off up here, that he would have lost his shit. If I would have just responded real quick. He said, I can drop you off up here, or if you want, I'll get you a little closer to where you're trying to go, take you up a couple exits closer where I live. And I waited. And after 5, 6, about 7 seconds, I said, I think right here will be all right. I said, oh, okay. I got out of the car, didn't even grab my backpack, pulled over on the side of the highway. I got out of the car. I said, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. And I got it completely out of the car, and then I reached in and grabbed my bag, and I closed the door. He drove away, and dude, I didn't know whether to run through the mountains or through the red rocks there outside of Sedona to be sure that I got away from this gentleman. that he couldn't find me if he tried to come back, um, or what I should do. But it was about 100 degrees. I went off the side of the road, took a piss, and I thought, you know what, I need to get out of here. And threw up my hand. Next person picked me up. They were some filmmakers doing a documentary, and they were absolutely awesome. Gave me some good food, got me right where I was trying to go. We got to Phoenix, and we literally got off the exit where the Holiday Inn was, just happened to be. And I told them to stop the car on the side of the highway, and I ran across the highway, and I was there. Like, out of this big city of Phoenix, we literally drove straight to the hotel without even trying to. And yeah, had some nice times with my Japanese girls. Anyway, it was an adventure. The danger. The Japanese girls. The hitchhiking to the Grand Canyon. Can't make this shit up. You know, it happened. The adventure. The unknown. It makes life worth living. I've got stories to tell for the rest of my life. I've got memories. And you are more than likely stuck in the matrix. You've probably got a lease that you aren't even thinking you can get out of, though you probably could. And you've put yourself in a bind. Well, you can get out of it. I recommend you do, especially if you're young. I recommend you get out of it and you go live your life. Go travel and see the world. For the world is a grand story, a grand book, and those who do not travel read only a page. Get out there. It's a glorious, glorious world. You'll come to find out that most people are absolutely awesome. They're good-hearted, they're good-willed, they're good-natured, and they want the best for you and their families. Yeah, we've definitely been indoctrinated to be fearful of the outside world. We've been made to be fearful to go forth. Now, I did hitchhike all of Mexico. I might not do it now based upon the stories I've heard, but you could. You could. I wouldn't probably recommend it. Once I found Asia, you know, it's been a good amount of time in Hawaii. Been down to Central and South America only one other time. Been to Europe as well. And from all those places, I always think about Southeast Asia. I'm always happy to be back here. I think I'll do a summit as well, where I'll invite men from all around the world to come meet up and see what life is like here in Asia. And I'll be somewhat of a field guide to show you gentlemen how beautiful life can be here. It can be absolutely epic. But yeah, you got to travel around. Don't just go live in one place either. Go travel around. Stay in hostels. Meet some people. Share some stories. Share some experiences. Get out there. Get out of your comfort zone, gentlemen. You don't need therapy. You don't need a feminist therapist, especially if it's relationship therapy. You know, no way. No, thank you. You know, the thing is if you are in a relationship, you're called to be the head of that relationship. You're called to be the leader. Women want you to be the leader, to guide them spiritually, emotionally, and they want you to guide the relationship, ideally. Now, they might try to take command over you, but deep in their hearts, that's what they all want. So if you submit to her wishes to go to therapy, then you're just going to be handing over. You're going to be forfeiting that leadership role. And the leadership role is then, instead of God being your leadership, you're now handing over that leadership role to a therapist who more than likely is going to be a feminist and is just going to gang up on you and tell you how you need to improve. So don't fall for it, gentlemen. Don't go for it. That's my advice to you. But strive to be better in every way, in every conceivable way. even in your shortcomings, even in your trigger points. Come to know yourself deeper and deeper and deeper. Reflect. Wow, get out there, gentlemen. Best thing I ever did. Letting go of everything, and I received everything. I wish the same for you. It's not the prescription for everybody, you know. Travel's not the prescription for everybody, but if you can do it in a spiritual nature and allow it to be a spiritual journey, I believe it'll be the greatest blessing you'll ever experience, perhaps. All right, gentlemen. One last point. I often, those first 90 days or so, even more so, I oftentimes just stayed in my hammock. Or I'd meet people and they'd invite me to stay with them. I might stay in a college town for 5, 6, 7 days, 10 days. Stayed in Yosemite National Park and slept in my hammock. I'd have my hammock taken down before the rangers even came around at 7:30, so I'd stay for free. And so many people gave me so much as well. There's also a website called couchsurfing.com where you can stay with people for free, though I would push you instead to go stay in hostels. I think they're the best. They're the best bet, especially outside of America. In Asia, you can stay in a good hostel for $4, $5. Clean, immaculate, good sleep, and spend all your time outside adventuring. All right? So you don't need therapy, gentlemen. Get out there and live your life. You need adventure. Go forth, adventure, gentlemen. I love you all. God bless. Peace. Like, comment, and subscribe as well if you haven't already. All right. Shabbat. Peace.